This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovators Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to this week's Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are back here in the studio this week. I just came back from a couple of weeks in Florida, and actually was down there. Did a quick interview at one of the new radio stations that just picked us up. We are now we've added 4 radio stations that are now carrying the show live. KFJZ 870 in Dallas Fort Worth. We have KGBC 1540 in Houston. St. Petersburg Fort Myers is the Talk 1010 station there. And then in St. Louis, we are in WGNU 920 AM in St. Louis. So that brings our total count now up to 35 stations across the country who are now picking up and carrying the show. So we do appreciate all of you and welcome if you are listening in on one of those stations to today's show. We welcome you to the show. We are live here each and every week. We also stream live on Facebook Live, so you can hop over onto Facebook and follow us there. You can either follow us on the Killer Innovations page on Facebook or just look for the Phil McKinney page. That's where you can ask questions while we're live in the studio. We take the questions from the Facebook Live feed, and then we'll answer those either live during the show itself, or we may hold those and do those during the commercial breaks that we have here, given that we are a live talk radio show. So with that, we're going to hop into this topic for the first segment of today's show, which is really around innovation competitions. And, you know, there's a lot of them out there. There's also a lot of awards events that are out there. And a few, I don't know, 3 or 4 months back, we had a guest, Tom Kizmarski, who is part of the Chicago Innovation Awards. The Innovation Awards in Chicago are coming up here October 25th. And I've invited Tom to come back and actually share with us a little bit more about the upcoming Innovation Awards. A little prep work. It's coming up here pretty quick on the October 25th. But give a little background on the awards and what are they all about and how do you figure out who the winners are and what are the real benefits to the winners of being awarded one of these awards. So, hey, Tom, thanks a lot. Really appreciate you coming back on the show.
Thanks, Phil. Hey, it's great to be here with you. Really, really appreciate it.
So we've got the Chicago Innovation Awards coming up October 25th in Chicago, which you and I were laughing before we went live on the show. That is the day of the first World Series game with the Chicago Cubs. But you're fortunate in the fact that the game is not in Chicago, so you're not going to be staring at an empty theater on that day.
Exactly.
People may be watching their phones to track the score, whatever. So it's coming up on October 25th. Give us a little background, a little history on the Chicago Innovation Awards, because this is like the 15th year for this, right?
Yeah, it sure is. Well, when we started it 15 years ago, its purpose really was to shine a spotlight on all the amazing things that big companies, small companies, high-tech, low-tech, no-tech organizations are doing right here in Chicago. And so what we wanted to do was make sure that we shined a spotlight on all of these activities. And the best way to do it is if you can bring a bunch of Chicagoans together and really share what other organizations are doing. And so the first year, we had 75 people attend the first Chicago Innovation Awards program. And on October 25th, we'll have 1,500 people who will be in attendance. So it's really grown a lot over the last 15 years.
And so are there like different, it's not just one award, you're giving out multiple awards. So talk us through kind of what are those different awards that are given out at the Innovation Award? Yeah.
Well, we give out 10 awards each year to either big companies or small companies that have really demonstrated an amazing innovation, along with 10 up-and-comer award winners whose organizations are doing less than $1 million a year in revenue. We also think it's important to have a social innovation award that provides some social benefit, a People's Choice Award. And this year, Phil, we had 46,000 Chicagoans vote on which of their candidate they wanted to win the People's Choice Award. And also brand new this year, we're giving out 3 neighborhood awards. And neighborhood awards are all aimed at organizations that are making an impact in their own local neighborhood. So when you think about innovation, most people will think of Apple or Google or some type of technology.
Right.
And
Yep.
our strong point of view is that innovation is applicable and relevant for every single industry. And that's what we get so excited about with Chicago, is that we see a breadth of innovation that cuts across healthcare and financial services and consumer products and B2B and nonprofits and restaurants even. I mean, so you really have a broad range of different innovations. This year we had 636 nominations for these 25 awards, which is an amazing number. It's an all-time record high. But let me tell you what those 636 nominees represented this year. Just if we looked at their new products or their new services, or if it was a new business, they generated $2.3 billion in revenues and created over 13,000 new jobs. So whenever I have anybody ask me, gee, does innovation really pay for itself? I go, oh my gosh, the economic impact of that is huge. I mean, it's just enormous.
I'm just laughing at the fact that we still get this question, right?
Yeah,
That people still ask the question, does innovation pay for itself?
Right.
You drive me nuts.
Right, exactly. And then you also asked how we evaluate, because out of 636, how do you get down to the top 25 is a tough one. And we have 12 judges that have been doing this now for the last, probably same judges the last 8 or 9 years, but very stringent criteria. The first and the foremost, most important one is, what has been the customer or consumer need or problem that this innovation solves for? So this isn't about a new idea or a new technology, but really, what's the relationship between problem and need that this innovation shares? The second is, what's the impact been in the marketplace? So it has to be something that customers, consumers, organizations value and place a value on it. And the third is, has there been some type of competitive response, Me Too response? Because often that will signal that this is the start of a new category or a new business area that hasn't really been around before. And then the fourth is, does it create a totally new category or a new business that hasn't been around? So those are the criteria that are used. But as you can imagine, oh my gosh, out of 636 nominations, we have more than just 25 winners. So it's hard to get it down to those at the very end.
So if I recall correctly from the last time you were on the show, the characteristics of the winners, though, of the Chicago Innovation Award is also somewhat impressive, meaning how many of them are still around, their continuing impact. This isn't sometimes like in Silicon Valley, you get some kind of award for a startup, but then 90% of those don't survive the next, year or whatever.
Exactly. In fact, the numbers, Phil, I find startling. There's been 204 winners over the past 14 years. There'll be 25 new ones coming up October 25th. 100% of all of those 204 winners are still in business today.
That's a statistic that you just don't see anywhere.
No, you really don't. And then the other corollary statistic with that one is that there's been 34 acquisitions for an exit value of $76 billion, and that's with a B.
Whoa.
So it's right. I mean, again, it just goes back to the incredible economic value of innovation if people are willing to invest the time, have the patience, and make the commitment to do it.
Yeah, it is, and I think that's impressive. Some of the awards, like the social innovation, is interesting. I do a lot of coaching and mentoring in the social innovation space because it's an area that I do a lot of my angel investing in, is in social innovation. But I'm interested specifically in the People's Choice Award. Do you put together a list of companies that they can vote on, or can they vote for any company they know?
Yeah, no, a good question. Of the 636 nominations this year, the judges take it down to the top 100. Those top 100 are put on, and the descriptions of them are put on the ChicagoInnovationAwards.com website, where anybody can go in and vote for as many candidates as they would like.
Okay.
And so the voting closed last week on Friday, but there were 46,000 votes this year, which is just so exciting.
It's amazing.
And the winner will be announced on the 25th. Yeah.
So, Tom, first off, thanks for coming in. I know we kind of squeezed this into the first segment, but I thought it was important. I think what you guys are doing with recognizing innovation and the innovators in Chicago is important. There's other innovation awards out there also, but I think what you guys are running and the history you guys have established is absolutely just top notch. What I would ask is after the awards are out, you and I let's touch base offline, but I'd like to have some of the winners on the show at some point to share their stories with us.
Absolutely. It'd be great for you to talk with it.
Perfect. Tom, thanks a lot.
Thanks so much.
We're going to take a quick break and come right back, and we'll continue our discussions. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
BizTalkRadio.com.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovators Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are live today in the studio here in Colorado. As I said in the first segment, I'm coming back after spending 2 weeks in Florida with the family. I now have a new grandchild. Caleb Matthew was born a little over, well, it'll be 2 weeks tomorrow. So he is number 5. So I have 3 granddaughters, 2 grandsons. And sorry, you get to listen to me brag about my grandkids like every grandparent does these days, right? I never quite understood the benefit of that with my parents until I started having my own grandkids. And let me tell you, they are the best thing. It's the best phase of life is when you've got those grandkids in your life. So we're having a great time with that, but I'm back in the studio, back in the saddle. We're here today in the studio, and we're going to talk about innovation competitions. We just had Tom Kizmarski, who runs the Chicago Innovation Awards, him and a team. They do a phenomenal job in Chicago. The awards are coming up again October 25th. We had Tom in the first segment to basically talk about the awards this year and how that's going. And it sounds like a great, phenomenal success as usual. The Chicago Innovation Awards are probably some of the premier award out there for the innovation space. Particularly, you look at the track record that 100% of the recipients of the awards are still in business. So they aren't these flash in the pans. They got a hot thing and then totally tank it. These are companies who are doing sustainable innovation that has real impact, but it's going to sustain over a period of time, which is important. And we joked a little bit in the first segment also about people asking, does innovation pay for itself? Now, one of the topics and one of the questions that we get quite often here at Killer Innovations is around innovation competitions. Are they something you should go and try to compete in? Are they things that warrant the effort? So we're going to spend actually the rest of this show talking about, at least from my perspective, innovation competitions. And then we're actually going to wrap it up at the end, where I'm going to share with you the 5 most common mistakes innovators make when submitting to an innovation competition. Now, if you go back a dozen years ago, innovation competitions didn't exist. There was no such thing as innovation competitions. They started coming about when companies such as Procter & Gamble and others started to publish out very tough, tricky technical problems that they had. And they would put out a description of those technical problems and then invite people to submit solutions and then offer a reward, dollar, so many dollars, $50,000, $100,000, $500,000 for an expert in a particular very deep technical field to solve this particularly well-defined problem. And that was kind of the early stages of these innovation competitions. But in the case of these innovation competitions, there are a variety of different types. There's the solution search, which is kind of what the Procter & Gamble example, and DuPont does it. There's been a number of companies that do this, and we'll talk a little bit more about some specific examples. And then you've got innovation competitions that are specifically about finding broad ideas around maybe a market or a new area of technology. You can make those very broad. You can also make those very narrow, being after very specific kinds of targets. So if you go out onto Google and you would just do a simple search and say, where are these innovation competitions? The one place that you'll 9 times out of 10 you're going to end up on is a site called Idea Connection. So it's ideaconnection.com. I'll have links in the show notes for you. But these are, Innovation Connection is kind of a clearinghouse for a number of these competitions. They tend to fall into the categories of ones that are like what Procter & Gamble. I've got a very specific problem or a very specific niche that I'm looking for a solution on. And actually this morning I just went out and did a quick search and went out onto the site and to kind of take a look at some of the new competitions that are out there and what the prize values are. You've got everything from there's a suit design challenge. Yes, it's a joint competition for the Executive Office for Chemical and Biological Defense is inviting textile technology and innovation community to participate a Chem Bio Suit Challenge. So biohazard suits. Can you design a better biohazard suit? The award is $150,000 if you can solve that problem. There's also the number 2 one that was on the Idea Connection as of this morning is the Relieve Itch Challenge. So the description is we are looking for digital and or device solution which will enable people with a skin condition such as psoriasis to find new relief from their itch or to live more comfortably with their itch. In fact, that competition ends on October 31st, so it's coming up here pretty quick. You got 15 days to solve this problem, and the award is $50,000. There's also social innovation. Verizon has an app challenge, which is a $15,000 award. It's aimed at high school students, middle and high school students. Are challenged to develop concepts for mobile apps that solve a problem in their community, and it's a $15,000 award. GE Egypt has one, Advanced Care for Patients. There's a Citrufruit Innovation Challenge for $10,000. We're primarily aimed at students. So these are just some of the examples of these kinds of competitions that are what I would call kind of these solution searches. These are ones that are looking for a specific problem. Maybe the Verizon one I would put into a more broader category. But you can go out there and find all these different kinds of innovation competitions. You can take a look at them, see if anything looks interesting for you. But there's also other kinds of competitions that are typically company-driven, maybe university-driven, maybe other kinds of organizations. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back. We're going to take a quick commercial break here in a minute. And what I also want to talk about in the next segment when we come back is why you as an innovator should even be interested in these innovation competitions. What is it that could potentially help you take your idea and turn it into something that has impact? We talk about venture capital. We talk about other ways of getting your idea and translating it into real. Innovation competitions could be a great way for you to take that idea and turn it into something real and meaningful. So we're going to talk more specifically about that as far as how do you think about the approach of innovation competitions and how they can actually help you take that idea or take what you're working on or take your skill and ability and turn it into something meaningful. So again, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to pick up our discussions on innovation competition, but more specifically, what does that mean for you and how would you respond? So stay tuned. We'll be right back. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
BizTalkRadio.com.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovators Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are back here in the studio live today talking about innovation competitions. So these are competitions that you can submit ideas to. You can win cash awards, some of them up into the hundreds, multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars for some of these awards. They're typically defined to be either what I call a solution search. They know the problem space. They need someone's expertise, to solve a specific problem, or it's broad ideas, things that aren't well defined, kind of, more out there of broad thinking from the ideas perspective. And picking up where we left off in the last segment, probably the easiest thing to do is just go out to Google search and just search for innovation space competition space 2016, and you literally will get tens of thousands of lists of competitions. Some of the ones that are out there right now is you've got the Ericsson Innovation Awards for 2016. It's designed for students. You got the MIT Inclusive Innovation Competition, which is about acceleration of technology growth for major benefit. You got the Office of Innovation and Improvement within the Department of Education. You got the Caribbean Innovation Competition for Young Americas. You got Think Beyond Plastic 2016 competition. You've got the Cisco Innovation Challenge, which is looking for disruptive digital solutions for a safer, more sustainable, and connected world. That's how their description is written. But those are just some of the examples. Now, the question is why would you submit to a competition? Well, there's two things. One is you may have some deep expertise in an area. And so therefore you want to apply that expertise, maybe make a little bit of money on the side. And there's actually innovators that this is what they do. They respond to these competitions and actually get out there and do quite well. In fact, over at Idea Connection, you can register yourself with your area of expertise, and you can become really a resource, and you get paid these bounties. 10,000 here, 100,000 there, a couple 100,000 there. You stitch enough of those together, you can actually build a career on being just an innovator, solving other people's problems, using your expertise to creatively look at a problem that they have and solving it. So that's what I would call kind of a forward way. You read the competition, you respond to it, you solve that problem, and you go for the win in order to get paid for the use of your expertise. There is a flip side, though, to the innovation competitions, and that is what I call a backwards approach. Now, what I mean by backwards approach is maybe you've got this idea rattling around in your head. You think it's a really hot idea, but maybe you're great technically, or you're a great idea person, but you stumbled trying to raise money or get investors, or you're not sure how to turn it into a business. You're not even sure you want to do that. You just got this really great idea. And in some cases, people try to go license the technologies. And let me tell you, and in fact, sometime in the future, I'll do a whole show on innovation licensing. It is incredibly hard, and the likelihood of success is very, very small. You always hear about these guys that got this patent and they get licensed, they make all this money. Trust me, it's not a common thing. It is not something where the odds of you winning is pretty slim. But let's just say you've got this idea rattling around in your head and you're not quite sure what to do with it, or how do you take it forward. Use this approach that I'm going to share with you, because it could be an avenue to get something out into the marketplace. The backwards approach is you've got an idea. Now what you do is you actually go search for an innovation competition that you can apply that idea to, right? So rather than just reading the competition and then solving the problem, this is a case where you have a solution and now you're trying to find the problem. Now, there's a lot of innovation competitions, which means you're going to have to grind through and read lots of them. But it actually is an interesting path to success. If you've got this idea, it's sitting on the shelf, or you've tried to get something going with it, and you've been unable to get it going, The reason why this works better than innovation licensing is because the company has defined the problem. It's not you saying, hey, I got this really great idea, and then try to stumble around inside of organizations trying to find the right person or to get them to agree that the problem even exists. In this case, you've got the solution. You find the company where they've defined the problem via competition, and you bring that together, and that's when you win. So this actually is a way to get your idea, your product, your solution into the marketplace without taking the risk or the very low likelihood of success by doing a traditional, typical IP or idea licensing model. So again, let's back up, make sure I'm explaining this so you get your arms around it. The forward approach is you read the competition, and then you apply your expertise to solve that, submit it, and win. The backwards approach is you've already got the idea. You're now going to search through all the innovation competitions that are out there and try to find one that your idea fits, and therefore get the win that way. So those are primarily why innovators should be very serious about applying for innovation competitions. We tend to scan through them. I don't engage a lot in innovation competitions personally. And I talk to a lot of other innovators. It's something that's not been on the radar screen, but it's something that I think should be on your radar screen. And in fact, it should be on my radar screen. I should be willing to jump in and take a look at some of these because I may have expertise to solve a problem. But in this case, if you're an innovator and you're struggling trying to find ways in order to get your ideas applied, innovation competitions is a great way. You can also use it as a way to solve some problems, raise some money, and then use that money to take another one of your ideas and bring it to market. You need cash, really, in order to drive a solution into the marketplace. There's very few ways, short of like a digital product that you create on your own and you sell on a Shopify site. But in the case of building products that have long legs, you're going to need some cash. This may be a way for you to raise some cash in that process. So every innovator should just keep an eye open on these innovation competitions just to see if there's ones out there that make sense or you've already got an idea on the shelf that you can apply. Now, this brings up an interesting question. Years ago, I bought a domain called innovationcompetitions.com because at the time, over on philmckinney.com, I was posting innovation competitions. People were submitting them. This is going back 10 years now, I'm guessing. People would send me an email saying, hey, Phil, I've got this competition. Could you promote it on the podcast? Could you promote it on your site? So I would write a little blog post about it. I used to get a lot of the military ones from the U.S. Air Force or U.S. Navy or DARPA or those guys. And so someone approached me, and for a very cheap price, I bought innovationcompetitions.com. I've never done anything with it, though. That's probably the sad part, right? That's like all of us, right? We have these great ideas, and then we don't do anything with them. So one thought would be is do I do something with that? If you are an innovator and you're thinking about wanting to get more active into competitions, are there sites already out there like Idea Connection that solves what you need, or would there be another site that would make sense? Hey, let me know. I've got the domain. I'm not doing anything with it. Would love to hear your thoughts if there's something out there that would make sense for helping you be successful and actually potentially build a career as competing in innovation competitions. Because you win 2, 3, 4 awards a year at $100,000 a pop. That's some serious coin, and can actually help establish you, and you can build an entire career as a top-notch innovator just by solving these problems that get posted as part of these competitions. So let me know if you've got any thoughts on that. So we're going to take another quick commercial break. And when we come back, I'm going to share with you my experience of having been on the judging side of innovation competitions of what are the 5 most common mistakes innovators make when submitting to innovation competitions. I've seen it all. I've boiled it down to the 5 biggest mistakes, and if you avoid these 5 mistakes, you significantly increase your chance of winning at one of the innovation competitions. So stay right there. You're not going to want to miss these 5 most common mistakes. It'll help you go out there and win in the innovation competitions. So stay right there. We're going to be right back here at Killer Innovations, and we're broadcast here Sunday live on the BizTalk Radio Network, and we'll be back in just a few short minutes.
BizTalkRadio.com.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovators Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are talking about innovation competition, and as I shared with you before, I'm going to share with you right now the 5 most common mistakes innovators make when submitting to innovation competitions. So you've made the decision that you want to compete. You found that innovation competition that you want to apply for. You've either got a great idea or you've got the right expertise. You know exactly how to solve this problem. What are the 5 most common mistakes that I've seen when being on the judging side? And I've judged a number of these competitions. What are the 5 most common mistakes? Number 1 is not reading or researching the background on the space. There isn't enough information in the innovation competition to give you everything you need to know about the problem space, right? So if you go with just what's in the innovation competition materials, you're going to try to have to make a bunch of assumptions on that space in order to try to solve it. So what I've seen is people submitting an idea without really you can tell that they haven't taken the time to kind of research into the space beyond what is written in the competition documents. So those get rejected right away. You can read those, you can tell right away it's very superficial, very high level. The submission is regurgitating the same words used in the competition description. It just tells you that someone's trying to paper mill submitting to competitions. So 1, don't do that. 2, not fully reading the ask. Understanding what the ask is. Typically in these competition materials, you get a little bit of background, you get a little bit of context, and then there's a specific ask. What is the specific problem? Be careful that you don't read more into the ask or make an assumption about what is actually written in the ask. One way to get around this is read the ask and then hand that exact same ask to 3 other people, have them read it, and then have them describe to you what the ask is really about. Now, if 2 or 3 people give you the exact same kind of parameters of the ask that you got from reading it, then you're probably getting it right. In the case of these people interpret it differently, then odds are then you're not interpreting it correctly. So be careful. You know, these are written documents. You don't typically have an opportunity to talk to the person who wrote the document. So you want to be careful when looking at that ask. Number 3, not following the guidelines on submissions. There's all kinds of guidelines. They'll tell you like what you are to submit, what format is it to be submitted in, what not to send. Don't send proprietary, don't send. In many cases they'll say, give us a description, but don't send anything proprietary or confidential yet. You can't send them a document with a non-disclosure at the bottom. They won't accept it, or they won't honor the non-disclosure. Just because you put non-disclosure in a footer is absolutely meaningless. Doesn't stand up in court. So, be very careful about following the guidelines, what you're to submit, what you are not supposed to submit, and in what format. Do they want it as a PDF? Do they want it a PowerPoint, 10-slide PowerPoint presentation? If they do that, don't submit a PowerPoint with 11, submit a PowerPoint with 10 pages. So again, number 3, not following the guidelines on the submissions. And for those competitions, they get a lot of submissions. This is probably one of the number 1 criteria to bounce you out from even being considered. They won't even look at it if you don't meet the guidelines. It's a quick way for them to filter, because if you're not diligent enough in reading the guidelines and following the guidelines, their assumption is your idea is going to be sloppy. You were sloppy in the submission, your idea must be sloppy. So again, one of the mistakes is not following the guidelines on the submissions. Number 4, weak or shallow submissions. This kind of ties into a little bit about not reading or researching the background on the space, but when you go to drive the submissions, when you go to solve the answer, you're putting forward your idea as to win the competition. Many cases, people will try to do just the minimal amount of work. They'll try to do a fluff piece in the writing. They're not very distinct and clear about what their idea is around this. And so the pitch or the presentation or your submission, the quality of that is critical. And the quality is both the writing on it, the visuals that go with it, the look and feel of it. Yes, it shouldn't make a difference, but it does. If you look at it and it's a really well formatted document and it's very well structured with good subheadings, you can kind of skim through and get a feel for it before you go back and start reading it in detail. All of that matters. So again, make sure that your submission is robust if you truly are planning on trying to win a competition. And again, apply deep thinking and put that commitment into preparing that pitch, preparing that presentation. And number 5, and probably the most critical, is not understanding the IP rules, the intellectual property rules. If you're going to submit an answer and they're going to pay you $150,000, who owns the intellectual property? Who owns the idea? Who owns the patents? What's your obligation if they grant you the $150,000 to assign the patents? So I've seen a lot of people go ahead and they go through all this work and then they submit, and then at the last minute they go and they're getting notified that they've been awarded, and they go, well, oh my God, I didn't know I was giving away my idea. I thought I was going to license you the idea. Make sure you understand what the IP rules are. So again, 5 most common mistakes innovators make when submitting to innovation competitions. Number 1, not reading and researching the background on the space. Number 2, not fully reading and understanding and interpreting the ask. What is the problem specifically? Number 3, not following the guidelines on the submissions. You just get sloppy and submit. Number 4, weak or shallow submission. Or number 5, not understanding the IP rules. And we will have all these up on the show notes, so just hop on over to killerinnovations.com. You can grab the show notes. Over there, you can also grab the entire archive of the show going back to March of 2005. Yes, we are in our 12th season for the show, so I invite you to go over there and check that out. So we're going to wrap up this week's show. Thank you for taking the time and joining us today. I would ask if you hop over at iTunes, give us a review. That's a big help for us, gets the word out. And with that, we're going to check out this week. We'll see you next Sunday here live at Killer Innovations. Bye-bye.
The opinions you hear on Biz Talk Radio are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect those of this station, Biz Talk Radio, its management, or advertisers. The information on Biz Talk Radio does not constitute a recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or service. If you have any questions about Biz Talk Radio, contact us at 817-274-1609 or at biztalkradio.com. biztalkradio.com.
Autism. 1 out of every 68 children in America are impacted across every race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic group. If you aren't directly affected, someone you know is. Today's world doesn't support those on the autism spectrum. It needs hacking for us to truly welcome those who think and create differently than ourselves. We're hacking autism. a nonprofit charity with a mission to hack therapy, technologies, and career opportunities that improve the personal and professional lives of people on the autism spectrum. We believe that everyone can play a role in supporting those on the autism spectrum so that they can show their unique talents and abilities in this fast-paced world. You aren't powerless in this fight. Use your gifts and talents to make a positive impact. Join us in making a difference. Go to hackingautism.org to learn more.
Carpenters have their hammers and saws, chefs have their outfitted kitchens, and musicians have their instruments. A craftsman's ability to do their job is dependent on having the right tools. So where does an innovator, someone who takes an idea and makes it real, find the right tools to do their job? Outfit your innovator's garage by visiting innovation.tools. Innovation.tools is an online store created by innovators for innovators. It's where you will find tested and proven tools to help you create that next great product or service. These tools include books, audio training, video training, brainstorming how-tos, and much, much more. And for a limited time, listeners of Killer Innovations will get 25% off on your first order by using the discount code RADIO at checkout. And 100% of our profits from your purchases will be donated to charity. So go to innovation.tools and create that next great innovation.
Rwanda is a shining example of how the global community can come together and rebuild a country after a devastating genocide. But there is still more that needs to be done. In the rural villages, students are crowded into schools with no electricity, no running water, no internet access, and limited sanitation. Will these kids be ready to continue the rebuilding of Rwanda, or will they be dependent upon others? Through education and employment, boys and girls have an equally promising future that can transform their struggling communities. For $20 a month, a child can be educated and a community strengthened. By supporting Pioneer Education Africa, a 501c3 charity, you partner with others to provide education that will prepare a generation to take on the task of self-reliance. 100% of the proceeds received go directly to the education of the children. Visit pioneereducationafrica.com to find out more.